I still remember the first time I met Gary, our handyman. There was something about him. An easy confidence, a quiet capability, and a smile that never seemed to waver. We had hired him to fix the broken fence in our backyard, and at the time I thought bringing him on was one of the best decisions we had made. He handled everything with professionalism and reliability, and I admired that. What I didn't know then was that he was fixing more than just our home. Jenny, my wife, was the one who found him. She had stumbled across his ad online, expert repairs at reasonable rates, and, as always, she had an eye for a good deal. I trusted her judgment implicitly. Matthew, she had said one morning over breakfast, her eyes bright with excitement, I found this handyman, Gary. His reviews are excellent. We should hire him for all the little repairs we've been putting off. I nodded, sipping my coffee. Sounds good. It'll be nice to finally get everything taken care of. And so, Gary became a regular presence in our lives. At first, it was just the fence, but then came the leaky faucets, the creaky doors, the drafty windows. Each time one job was finished, Jenny found another. Matthew, the bathroom tiles are starting to look old. Maybe Gary can redo them, she suggested one evening. Sure, I replied, happy that things were getting handled without me having to lift a finger. It became a pattern. Every day when I returned home from work, Jenny would eagerly fill me in on what Gary had fixed. The basement shelves are sturdier than ever now, she told me one night, smiling. Great, I said, genuinely pleased. Felt good knowing the house was finally being taken care of. But then, one evening, something changed. I got home earlier than usual, a rare occurrence. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Gary's van parked outside. It wasn't unusual. He was here often. But something about it unsettled me. The house was quiet, but as I stepped toward the door, faint laughter carried through the walls. Jenny's soft, lilting giggle, followed by Gary's deeper chuckle. There was an ease, a warmth between them that made my stomach twist. I pushed open the door and set my briefcase down, listening for a moment longer. The sound came from the living room. Taking a slow breath, I cleared my throat as I stepped inside. Jenny sprang up from the couch, her face flushing a deep red. She had been sitting too close to Gary, closer than I liked. She quickly moved away, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, flustered. Oh, Matthew, you're home early, she said, her voice unnaturally high. Gary was just finishing up the shelves in the kitchen. Gary, unfazed, got up, wiping his hands on a rag. His expression remained as casual as ever, his easy smile still in place. Hey, Matthew, just about to head out. The shelves are all set. I nodded slowly, my gut tightening. There was something there, something just beneath the surface. A familiarity between them that I couldn't quite put my finger on. But I brushed it off. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Thanks, Gary, I said, keeping my tone neutral. I appreciate it. No problem. He grinned, heading toward the door. Let me know if you need anything else. I watched him go, my mind spinning. Jenny stood near the couch, avoiding my gaze, fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. You okay? I asked, narrowing my eyes slightly. Yeah, she answered too quickly. I was just surprised to see you home early. I shrugged. Had a light day at work. Thought I'd come back and relax. She nodded, but the tension between us lingered. I decided to let it go, not wanting to create a scene over what could have been nothing more than my imagination running wild. But the uneasy feeling never left me. A few days later, Jenny brought up remodeling the guest room. Gary could handle it, she said lightly. He has great ideas for modernizing the space. It seemed reasonable enough, so I agreed. But then, the invoices started piling up. New tiles, expensive fixtures, high-end paint. The costs were far higher than I had expected. Jenny, I asked one evening, frowning at the numbers, why are we spending so much on a guest room no one ever stays in? She hesitated. It's an investment, Matthew. If we ever have guests or decide to sell the house, it'll add value. I raised an eyebrow. Gary says that? The name was starting to wear on me. Then, one afternoon at work, I checked our bank account on my phone. My coffee grew cold as my eyes scanned the transactions. Jewelry stores, electronics outlets, luxury boutiques, places we never shopped at together. That night I confronted her. "Jenny, what is all this?" I held up my phone. Her face paled. "Oh, those are just gifts. For friends and family." I scoffed. "Since when do we give such expensive gifts?" She fumbled for a response, her words vague, evasive. My chest tightened. Something was wrong. That was when I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next day, while Jenny was out running errands, I installed hidden cameras around the house. Small, discreet, embedded in clocks and behind picture frames. The living room, the kitchen, the bedroom, and most importantly, the guest room. As I worked, my mind raced. I didn't want to believe Jenny could betray me, but I needed proof, one way or another. The next few days were torture. I pretended everything was fine, but inside, I was unraveling. Each night, after Jenny went to bed, I stayed up, combing through the footage. At first, there was nothing unusual. Just Gary fixing things, Jenny making him coffee, their conversations light and harmless. By the second night, doubt crept in. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was letting paranoia consume me. But then came the third day, and what I saw changed everything. I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat, my pulse roaring in my ears. There, in the guest room, our guest room, Jenny and Gary sat too close, their hands brushing, their touches lingering in a way that spoke volumes. My chest tightened as I watched the silent intimacy between them, the way their eyes met with unspoken understanding. Then, without hesitation, Jenny leaned in. Their lips met, not in a brief, innocent kiss, but in something deep, something hungry. It was the kind of kiss that sent fire through my veins, not out of passion, but out of pure, searing betrayal. My hands clenched as I watched their bodies melt together, as the line between stolen touches and outright surrender vanished before my eyes. Clothes began to slip away, their hands exploring, their whispers lost in the heat between them. I couldn't watch anymore. With a sharp intake of breath, I snapped my laptop shut, my fingers trembling against the cool surface. My stomach twisted violently, and for a moment, I thought I might be sick. The weight of it all crushed down on me. The realization that this wasn't just a mistake, not a fleeting moment of weakness. This was deliberate. This was months of deception unraveling before me in a single, undeniable moment. All the little signs I had ignored suddenly aligned. The lingering glances, the subtle changes in Jenny's behavior, the way she had begun to pull away from me, the unexplained purchases. It all made perfect, devastating sense now. That night, sleep was a distant luxury. My mind replayed the footage over and over, torturing me with images I would never be able to erase. The ache in my chest refused to subside, but beneath the heartbreak, something else simmered. Rage. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, my decision was made. I would not let this betrayal fester in silence. I would confront her. I would end this. I sat in the kitchen, a steaming cup of coffee cooling untouched in front of me. My fingers tapped restlessly against the wooden table, the weight of the impending confrontation pressing heavily on my shoulders. Then I heard her, light footsteps descending the stairs, the sound of her moving through the house, completely unaware of the storm waiting for her. "Good morning," she said cheerfully as she entered the kitchen, her voice carrying the same easy warmth she had always used, as if nothing had changed. I lifted my gaze to meet hers, my expression unreadable. "Jenny," I said, my voice steady but cold, "we need to talk." She froze mid-step, the color draining from her face. "What's wrong?" "Sit down." A hesitation flickered in her eyes, but she obeyed, sinking into the chair across from me, her posture stiff with apprehension. I gripped the edge of the table, drawing in a slow breath before I spoke. "I know about you and Gary." Her lips parted, but no words came. "I installed cameras," I continued, my voice unwavering. "I saw what happened in the guest room." A thick silence stretched between us, suffocating. Then her gaze fell to the table, her hands trembling slightly. "Matthew," I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened? I repeated, my voice rising. You brought him into our home, into our bed practically, and you expect me to believe this was some kind of accident. Tears welled in her eyes, but they only fueled the fury burning inside me. How long? I demanded. How long has this been going on? She wiped at her face, her voice barely above a whisper. A few months. I slammed my fist against the table, the force of it making her jump. A few months? The words tasted like poison on my tongue. All this time, you've been lying to me? Spending our money on him? Using our house as your personal getaway? Her breath hitched. I was lonely, she said, her voice breaking. You've been so busy with work. Always tired. Always distracted. Don't you dare blame this on me. I snapped. We all go through rough patches, Jenny. We work through them. But this, my voice cracked as I fought to contain the sheer fury boiling inside me. This is unforgivable. She sobbed openly now, her shoulders shaking under the weight of her guilt. But I couldn't bring myself to feel any sympathy. What did you think would happen? I asked, my voice cold. That I'd never find out? That you and Gary could just keep using me like a fool? I stood abruptly, pacing the room, my hands running through my hair as I struggled to contain the storm raging inside me. Matthew, please, she pleaded through her tears. I know I've ruined everything. But, damn right you have. I cut her off, my voice sharp and final. I trusted you. I loved you. And this is how you repay me. For a long moment, I stared at her, my decision settling heavily between us. This is over, Jenny, I said, my voice steady. This marriage is done. I'm speaking to a lawyer. And as for Gary, he won't be getting away with this either. A flicker of horror crossed her face. Matthew, please, can't we talk about this? No, I said without hesitation. There's nothing left to talk about. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her alone with the mess she had created. That morning, I left the house, needing air, needing space. But no amount of fresh air could clear the storm inside me. I knew what had to be done. My first stop was a lawyer's office. I laid everything out. Jenny's affair, the hidden cameras, the financial betrayal. The lawyer listened carefully before nodding. We have a strong case for divorce, she assured me. Gather all your financial records. Keep your composure. This will be a long, emotional process, but legally you're in a solid position. Armed with a plan, I returned home later that evening, ready to see this through. Jenny was waiting for me, her eyes swollen from crying. Matthew, please. I shook my head. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing, but I felt nothing. Whatever connection we had was gone, severed beyond repair. Days passed, and I packed my things, moving into a small apartment. I couldn't stay in that house. Jenny called me over and over, but I ignored her, letting the lawyer handle everything. The divorce moved swiftly. With the evidence stacked against her, the court ruled in my favor. I walked away with a significant portion of our shared assets. And as for Gary, word spread fast. His once thriving handyman business crumbled. Clients stopped calling. No one wanted to trust a man who had built his reputation on betrayal. Months passed, and the divorce was finalized. Signing those papers felt like closing the door on a nightmare. I had loved Jenny once, but that love was nothing more than a scar now. And then I heard the news. Jenny and Gary had gotten married, but it didn't last. 6 months later, she cheated on him too. A bitter satisfaction settled in my chest. Some people never change, but I had. I was free, and that was all that mattered. The future stretched before me, wide open, full of possibilities I hadn't even realized were waiting for me.